Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology. And today I want to show you a really cool technique that is used in horary astrology, but could also be used in natal astrology and everyday mundane forecasting or tracking the transits every day. So I'm going to show you this technique in a recent horary that I solved about whether or not a cat would come back. And then I want to show you how you can apply it to some of the transits that are coming up today, but really any old day. So let's get into it. So the technique is called a translation of light. And I just want to show you what it looks like. So, all right. So here is the question that the person asked. You should be able to see it on the screen now. And this person asked, "Will my cat come home?" And I'm making it a little bit anonymous. I won't give the name of the cat. We're trying to protect the identity of all cats out there, as well as their owners. But anyway, so in a horary question, for those of you who don't know what horary is, a question is asked, a predictive question. Often it's a yes or no question. Should I questions don't work really as well for horary unless you have very specific information that could help qualify the question and then help you decide for yourself if you should or shouldn't do something, because the oracle is really not here to make a decision for us. But there are also questions that are really interesting, like missing objects, missing people, missing animals. In the past month, I have handled 2 or 3 missing people cases, which is really rare. And then to have 2 or 3 of them all at once was especially strange. But then I also had one about a missing cat. The question was whether or not the cat would come back. So the querent, the person asking, so first of all, the chart is cast at the moment that the astrologer receives the question from the astrologer's location. It's like the chart becomes a lightning rod between the astrologer and the gods. The oracle ends up speaking to what the answer is. And so you don't need the birth chart for it. It's like the birth chart of a question. Okay, so Libra's rising, 26 degrees Libra's rising. So Venus, the ruling planet of the ascendant, becomes the planet that represents the person asking the question. Oftentimes, the querent will also be co-signified by the moon. The moon in a missing person or sometimes a missing animal could also end up representing the missing animal. This is interesting in this case because I'm gonna show you 2 different ways that horary astrologers might solve this, but there's different techniques that astrologers use. So anyway, we're going to show you how a translation of light is at work in this horary. So the 6th house ruler becomes, here's the 6th house cusp. You can see Aries on the 6th house cusp. For horary, because I learned from more of a medieval approach, horary, a lot of the major textbooks and methodological approaches to horary flourished in the medieval period, at least those that we know about. And so a lot of those astrologers used quadrant-based houses and taught horary techniques with quadrant-based houses. So I use Regiomontanus, which is what my teachers taught me. So if you're wondering why it's not in whole sign, that's why. Now, this is the only really part of my practice that I use quadrant-based charts. Okay, so let's take a look here at the 6th house ruler, which is going to be the house that governs small animals, smaller than, say, I don't know, people, I think it's like a sheep or something along like a goat or something like that. It's like smaller than that. So this is a cat, unless it was a really big cat. We're talking about the 6th house ruler. So now we can see, oh, look, here's the owner and here's the cat. Now, the fact that they're in Virgo or which houses really doesn't matter. There's a lot of static in horaries, and we're trying to find signal. Now, the moon will often represent the flow of events. So right now, the moon does not see the planets in Leo or Aquarius because it is averse to those signs. And so what we're looking at is what is the most recent aspect that's been made and what is the next aspect that's coming. In this case, a search is underway for the kitty. The kitty is on the move out there. So the moon is showing us a moving and developing or evolving dynamic. Here, the moon has recently made a sextile to Mars, and its next aspect will be a trine to Venus. So the moon becomes like an intermediary that brings together Mars and Venus. Now, Venus is moving faster than Mars, so that Mars and Venus together can't connect. If we had seen an aspect here straight away from Venus to Mars, unprohibited by any other aspect, then we would say the cat comes to the owner or the owner to the cat. Either way, they're coming together. But in this case, we can't get there because Venus is already past Mars. So the moon translates the light from Mars to Venus. There's a active search underway, or you could even say that the cat, like the cat's on the move, and will it come home? So the other technique that someone might use, sometimes you'll see people give missing animals or missing people who are moving out there somewhere, they'll give them the moon in a missing person or animal horary, in which case the moon is going straight to Venus, so you could go that way too. But if you understand that this is also a translation of light, then you've understood the main concept I wanted to teach you today. It's a really cool concept because it has so much applicability to everyday transits and forecasting. So let's go to that next. What I'm going to do is, so the good news here before I go on, like just leave you all wondering, well, did the cat come back? Yes, the cat came back. In fact, the cat came back. I mean, this is funny. Because I had, said, yes, the cat will come back. And then there's some applicable timing. And the person sent me a picture of their cat having come back by the following morning. So horary for the win. But at any rate, and their cat had like never left home before, or something crazy like that. He'd never gotten out. It had never been, wouldn't go, it wouldn't just take off. As an older cat, etc. So this was kind of unusual, but the cat came back, and the horary showed us the cat will come back. All right. So anyway, what I want to do now is to show you how that same exact technique, the translation of light, is applicable when interpreting everyday transits. Now, I'm only going to use the traditional 7 planets, and I'm going to revert to whole sign houses now. But let's take a look at the real-time clock. Here is the real-time clock, and here's what it can show you. Whoops. Here we go. So here's the moon today at 11 degrees of Libra. Now, let's say that Libra has just separated from a trine to Saturn, which it has just done, and it is now in the process of making a sextile to the sun. So what you could do, and I don't recommend being too picky with this, right, is just take a notebook, and if you're tracking lunar transits every day, you can think like this, write it down just like this. You could say, the moon will connect to Saturn. The moon will connect to the sun. So moon brings together Saturn and the sun. Okay. So you just kind of map it out. What is the moon is like a web weaver. The moon is weaving together the different planetary archetypes. The moon doesn't mean that the moon doesn't have its own influence, but remember that the moon ruled the sublunary world and was generally responsible for change, coming to be and passing away, change of circumstance, change of events. And what I want to encourage you to think of is that the moon is like this beautiful mirror in the sky, that when it hits an aspect to a planet, it's like your mood ring. If you can imagine that you are a mood ring and that the world around us is like a mood ring, that it starts to change colors. And when it hits a trine to Saturn, and you can get really detailed about this if you wanted to. For example, you could say the moon is in the exaltation of Saturn with a favorable Jupiterian flavored trine to Saturn. Trines are the nature of Jupiter. It's in Venus's sign, and it's, exalting Saturn in a trine with Saturn, and then it goes right into a sextile with the sun, who's in its own domicile in Leo, in a harmonious sextile. Sextiles are of the nature of Venus. So what do I get from doing that? I get the feeling that there's a pretty nice harmonious connection from Saturn to the sun going on, from Jupiter, or from the moon in Libra to Saturn and the sun. Now, how does that manifest? Well, I'm just going to give you an example from my own life. So this morning, I had to make a really difficult personal decision. And often when I have to do that, I'll speak to one of my mentors or my guru. I have a few mentors and obviously my spiritual master. So uh, I sat down and, I spoke with my wife about it. I like weighed out all the pros and cons, as the moon's moving into the trine with Saturn last night. And I'm balancing all the pros and cons or whatever. And I'm trying to understand that what's the wise choice to make here. It's, kind of a difficult prioritization of time and energy and resources and so forth. And, this morning, I noticed, oh, there's a translation of light. This translation of light is happening. And as I sat down and I weighed out my options, like a good sort of good Libra moon, right? I knew that I needed to ask or consult, a veteran, someone wiser than myself to make the decision. And as soon as I reached out to my guru, literally just wrote a message saying, "Hey, do you have a minute to talk?" I knew what I needed to do. I knew exactly what the right choice was. You know what I mean? It was funny. And then I felt, like I told him, like, I was like, "I'm sorry to waste your time." Apparently, like as soon as I reached out, I knew what to do. And then I just sort of explained my process. And at any rate, and he just kind of laughed and actually ended up having a story about a time in his life when he had to make a similar choice. And it was, he could relate. And it was really nice feedback to hear that he also thought that I had made a good decision. So the difficulty of having to say no to something, having to prioritize time, energy, and resources, having to make a choice, but a really good, like feeling really, it's a tough one, but I know I need to do it. I'm going to feel better when I do it. Moon trine to Saturn. And then translating the light to a nice looking sun where there's this immediate connection of feeling clear, feeling light, feeling enlightened from within. You guys know what I mean? You ever made a tough choice to make and it's the right choice to make, but it's really hard to actually make it. And then once you get closer and closer, you start feeling like, oh, okay. No, this is good. This is good. I can do this. This is going to make me feel better. Then suddenly it's like, well, what was I ever so weighed down about? But at any rate, the translation of light, I want to pop this back up on the screen for just a second, does not need to be taken literally. People will often ask this. For example, look at where the moon has not even connected. It's just past Saturn. It wasn't literally connecting with Saturn when I made the choice, and it hasn't literally connected with the sun yet. So someone might say that I'm just projecting my situation onto a dynamic, but no. In ancient astrology, the moon's application range was up to 15 degrees. And anything the moon was doing within that 15 degrees, including a translation of light, could really be felt or experienced anytime within the literal, the literal unfolding of the moon's applications. But more than that, in a horary, such a translation of light could be something that is depicting something that will unfold over a year. So like one of the ways it's really important to think about is that we tend to look at the sky like it's a literal clock. But ancient astrologers said, well, you can use it as a literal clock, but it can also be a symbolic clock that just depicts movements and stages of developments karmically over periods of time that are not at all literally connected to what you're looking at. So the moon and its movements are like a mirror, and translations of light can help you see how one kind of thing is translating or moving to another kind of thing. This is also used in electional astrology when people will look at how the moon translates light from one thing to another to see how a business will go. And so what date should I start? And we'll start it here because the moon's going to do this and then this and then this. So at any rate, I would love if you guys take a minute to try and track some translations of light, see if you can figure it out. If you know how to track transits. If you don't, this might be an exercise that's like a little bit too much to bite off. But look at a translation of light, even this one today between, say, Saturn that's just completed and the sun that's coming up. Or you could go from the sun to Jupiter, which is the next one that will happen. And play with this technique and see what you come up with. If you want to share a story, put #grabbed, tell me your story. Love to hear it. You can also look at your birth chart and see the moon was going from here right to here. The tighter the aspect range, in other words, like the moon is making one connection and then another connection, connecting two different areas of my life, I'd say, try to keep it within like 8 to 10 degrees total if possible. It just tends to work a little bit better the tighter it is. That's not to say you couldn't go up to that 15 sort of degree space that you'll often see the moon brought out to, but try it in your birth chart too. See what you find. You'll often find that the moon is one of the interlocutors of your chart that connects different things together by virtue of the aspects it was making at the time of birth. So I hope that you've enjoyed this little lesson on translations of light. Yay, the cat came home. We're really excited about that. And yay for good, tough decisions. Okay. Hope you guys are having a great day. We'll be back again tomorrow for more soon. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.